Welcome back to USA Fans. Today we are not dealing with rumors, we are dealing with actions for months. You have heard the speculation, you have heard the theories, but what is happening right now on the ground in Baghdad has shifted the conversation entirely. We need to talk about the number that everyone is whispering, but few dared to say out loud. Until now, $3.22, is it possible? And more importantly, has Prime Minister Sudani finally given the ultimate green light to the banking sector to prepare for this reality? If you look at the surface, things seem calm. But if you look at what the banks are actually doing, a completely different picture emerges today. We are going to expose the connection between Prime Minister Sudani's recent executive orders and the frantic preparation happening inside Iraq's financial institutions. This is the evidence you have been waiting for. Let's begin with the source of this new momentum. Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani, over the last few weeks, his language has changed drastically. He is no longer just talking about economic reform. He's talking about immediate financial sovereignty when the leader of a country sitting on trillions of dollars in assets stands up and declares that the era of relying on a foreign currency is over. That is not a casual statement. That is a directive. We have tracked multiple statements where Sudani has explicitly told the Central Bank of Iraq and the Ministry of Finance that the current situation is unacceptable. He has set deadlines for digitalization. He has forced merchants to stop using dollar, RS. Why the rush? Why the intense pressure? Now, analysts believe this is because the final piece of the puzzle is ready. Sudani knows that you cannot claim true sovereignty with a currency valued at a fraction of a penny. His actions are the green light. He's effectively telling the world and his own banking system to get ready for the real value of the Iraqi dinar. Now let's look at why the specific figure of $3.22 plus is being discussed. So seriously, this isn't a random number pulled from thin air. This is about restoration. Before the wars, before sanctions decimated the economy, the Iraqi dinar traded powerfully against the US dollar. Iraq today is not a poor nation. It has more gold reserves now than ever before. Its oil production is stable and expanding. It is signing massive contracts with global giants like Total Energies and Siemens. Ask yourself this: do global corporations sign 30-year contracts with a country whose currency is worthless? No. They sign contracts based on future value. The math supports a rate correction. When you combine Iraq's oil wealth, its massive gold holdings, and its newfound political stability, under Sudani, a rate in the $3 range is not a fantasy. It is a return to fundamentals. The current rate of 13.10 is the anomaly. The $3.22 range is the correction. Sudani knows this math, and his administration is now moving to make that math a reality for the Iraqi citizens. But the most compelling evidence isn't just what Sudani is saying, it's what the banks are physically doing in response to his green light. This is where the exposure happens. We are receiving reports and seeing evidence of a massive logistical undertaking across Iraq's banking sector. Think about the ATMs. For years, they have only dispensed large stacks of nearly worthless notes. Now, there is a coordinated effort to recalibrate these machines across the country. Why would banks spend millions of dollars upgrading ATM software and hardware if they were just going to keep dispensing the same old 25,000 dinar notes? They wouldn't. You only recalibrate machines if you're preparing to dispense something different, specifically lower denominations that carry real purchasing power. Furthermore, look at the point-of-sale systems being mandated in every shop, gas station and pharmacy. Sudani is forcing the entire economy onto digital rails. Why? Because when a high rate hits, you cannot have people walking around with wheelbarrows of cash. You need a digital system designed to handle high-velocity, high-value transactions. The infrastructure is being built to support a currency that acts like the dollar, the euro, or the pound. The banks are not just preparing for a small adjustment. Their actions suggest they are preparing for a complete transformation of value. We must also consider the international pressure. The US Treasury and the Federal Reserve have been in constant communication with the CBI. For a long time, the US was applying brakes, demanding compliance against money laundering, but now Iraq has met those demands. The shift we are seeing suggests that the US has moved from blocking the revaluation to facilitating it. Sudani's recent confidence indicates he has the backing he needs on the global stage to make this move. The green light isn't just from Baghdad, it appears to be acknowledged internationally. So what does all this mean for you? Right now, it means the window for speculation is closing and the window for action is opening when a Prime Minister gives a directive for sovereignty and the entire banking sector mobilizes to upgrade their physical and digital infrastructure to handle a high-value currency. You're watching the final stages of preparation. Is the $3.22 rate official today? No, the CBI website has not changed this second, but the mechanisms to make it official have been activated. Sudani has pushed the button that starts the sequence. The banks are responding to that signal. The preparation is undeniable. The math is undeniable. The political will is now undeniable. We are likely in the quiet period before the storm, the period where the work is done behind the scenes, before the public announcement is made. This is not the time to get distracted by daily noise. This is the time to watch the actions of Sudani and the banks. We are telling us everything we need to know. The green light is on, the preparations are underway, and the reality of a restored Iraqi dinar is closer than it has been in 20 years. But wait, there is even more evidence that proves this green light is real. We cannot ignore the massive elephant in the room, the tri-annual budget and the hydrocarbon law. These are not just legal documents, they are the financial roadmap for the new Iraq. And they are screaming for a revaluation. Think about the math for a second. Iraq has passed a budget that focuses on massive infrastructure projects, hiring hundreds of thousands of new employees and rebuilding entire cities. How can they sustain this massive spending with a currency valued at 13.10 to the dollar? The deficit would be crushing. Financial experts have pointed out repeatedly that the only way to balance these books without destroying the economy is to increase the purchasing power of the dinar. By revaluing the currency, the government effectively increases its spending power domestically. Sudani knows this, the finance committee knows this. The budget is built for a strong dinar, not a weak one. And then we have the HCL, the hydrocarbon law. This is the holy grail for dinar holders. This law is designed to distribute oil revenue shares to the Kurdish region and eventually to the citizens. Ask yourself, how do you distribute oil wealth to citizens using a currency that requires a wheelbarrow to buy a loaf of bread? You can't. To implement the HCL effectively, you need a currency that has value. You need a currency where a few notes can pay a monthly dividend. The fact that Sudani is pushing to finalize the HCL right now is a direct correlation to the currency revaluation. They go hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other. We also need to look at the World Trade Organization. The WTO Iraq is sprinting toward full accession. They have completed almost all the requirements. But there is one major rule for joining the WTO. You must have a recognized, tradable and stable currency. You cannot play in the big leagues of global trade. With a sanctioned multi-tiered currency system, Sudani's aggressive push to join the WTO in 2026 is yet another green light that the currency reform is imminent. The sanctioned multi-tiered leagues, international community is opening the doors. But Iraq has to walk through them with a currency that the world respects. Let's also talk about the gold reserves. In the last year alone, the Central Bank of Iraq has been buying gold at a historic pace. They are now among the top holders of gold reserves in the Arab world. Why hoard gold? If you plan to stay weak, you accumulate gold to hedge against the dollar and to back your own sovereign currency. This is a classic move by a nation preparing to repeg or float its currency at a higher rate. They are building a fortress of value behind the dinar so that when they pull the trigger on 322 or higher, the market doesn't crash it. Stabilizes. Finally, look at the parallel market. For years, the street rate controlled Iraq. Sudani has declared war on the black market, and he is winning the gap between the official rate and the street rate. Is closing by drying up the illicit dollar supply. He is forcing everyone into the banking system. This is the squeeze before the pop. He's clearing the runway so that when the new rate lands, it lands on a clean, regulated banking sector, not a chaotic black market. So when you put it all together, the ATM updates, the digital transformation, the budget deficit solutions, the oil law, the WTO accession, and the gold reserves, the conclusion is inescapable. The $3.22 rate isn't just a dream. It is a mathematical solution to Iraq's future. Prime Minister Sudani has given the green light because he has no other choice. The country must move forward, and it can only move forward with a strong dinar. The question is no longer if, but when. And looking at the speed of these reforms, when could be much sooner than the skeptics think. Do not let the silence fool you.